Make your day richer than it was before. Got some good times knocking upon your front door.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Make Your Day Richer. I'm your host, Richard Wilmore, and I want to introduce you to my guest today, Don Mamone. Hi, Don.
Hello, Richard.
How are you?
Spectacular. How are you?
I am good. We were talking before we went on here. We film right outside of Charlotte, and you were in Charlotte yesterday. How was your visit to the city?
The Queen City is my fourth or fifth time back. The Queen City is one of my favorites. It's clean, it's safe, it is inclusive and diverse. I loved everything about it.
I love it here. We've been here about a year, and it's been a really, really good move. So next time you come back, let me know, and we'll hang out.
Now that I know and we've become acquainted, there's no chance I'm getting in and out of the city without having a coffee or a beverage with
Okay,
you.
good. I've already got my favorite coffee spot, so you're invited.
Mm.
When I was doing research on you and reading your bio and going through your website, a few things jumped out at me that I wrote down that I really want to touch on while I have you in the room. An identity coach.
Yeah.
I want to know what all of these things are that I've written down, because I love your take on them and why they're important for people. So what is an identity coach?
So for me, and I'm sure everybody's experience is different. For me, as I found my foothold in the coaching space, which for those of you that feel like this is like the zeitgeist buzzword, everybody's doing it. For me, a coach is someone who helps you, like a therapist helps you with your past. A coach helps you with your future. So I am future planning with my clients, and I'd put my foot in spaces that I thought I was kind of a subject matter expert, and I knew I could move the needle for people. But then when I sort of started courageously living outside the binary as someone who identifies as non-binary, I realized that the things that hold people back are very common, and they oftentimes have to do with feeling like they're not allowed to be who they genuinely know themselves to be in their head and in their heart. And that tends to be what's holding them back. And so I decided to pour all my effort and thought into what the patterns were, what the behaviors were, and how people were basically choosing, although they don't see it that way at first, choosing to restrict themselves from being the best, most impactful version of who they are.
And what are you hearing from the people you're working with as they're discovering that?
Well, the number one thing, and I know this is hard to imagine and or incredibly relatable, okay? And I know those seem diametrically opposed, but I think some people who have kind of figured it out and are real confident and comfortable in who they are like, wow, I can't even imagine that. But one of the most common things I hear is, I don't even know who I am, or I don't even know what brings me joy. Because one of my favorite questions to ask is, tell me about yourself. And then if they struggle, I say, okay, tell me what brings you joy. And the number of people who are like, I don't really know, is very telling to me. And so that's those are two of the things I hear a lot.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this?
I mean, I want to say I've been doing it since birth, because I feel like when I say people step into their zone of genius, I believe it is the thing that they are genuinely, uniquely qualified to do based on who they are and their knowledge and experience over time. I feel like I've always had an empathetic and compassionate ear. I've always felt really intuitive, but I've been honing the skill as a professional outlet for about the last 4 years.
I think the world has changed so much over the last 4 years. I feel like you came into it right when you were probably supposed to, right? Like the world needs you the most right now, and it's not putting any pressure on you, but we need you.
Well, thank you.
I want to talk about your mission for people to not ask permission. And I always have heard that saying, like, ask for forgiveness, not permission, or whatever that is, of like, do it and ask later if it was okay. What does that mean to you, and why do you live by that?
So I love that saying. I think it's really cute in an industrial, social, or otherwise environment, in which you're like, well, I'm just going to do this. I know it's bending the rules, but I'll ask for forgiveness later and people will be okay with it. I think it's fun. I think it's cute. But for me, the profound benefits of not asking for permission basically mean that you get to be exactly who you are everywhere you go, no matter who you're with, because you're not looking for validation or permission to be who you are. And I'll use myself as an example as a non-binary individual. And for those of you in the audience that don't know what that means, I believe that the gender binary is a societal structure. I believe that implicitly gender exists on a spectrum, and you get to plot yourself wherever you want on that spectrum as your gender identity, who you know yourself to be in your head and your heart. So what that means for me is there is no line between man and woman. I am all things to all people, basically based on who I know myself to be. And so what that means is I oftentimes, as a male assigned at birth, will wear a dress or wear heels or wear makeup and earrings as you see me today. If I asked for permission to do those things, I would never be able to show up as who I am.
Mm,
And if I compartmentalize my life and be like, well, I'm hanging out with my friends for game night tonight, I'm allowed to be who I am, but I'm going to this meeting over here, in which case I'm not allowed to be who I am, I become this manufactured, fragmented version of myself that never truly steps into my full impact and potential. And I won't allow that to be. So I don't ever ask for permission to be who I am.
I don't think I've ever thought about that. Like, I think, like the same thing of like, oh, I'm going here, so I have to wear this. I'm going there, so I have to, but like the psychological piece behind that, I've never thought about that before.
And, I do love to add this little caveat. I'm not talking about mass anarchy. As a non-binary person, if I show up at a business meeting, I'm not going to wear a pink prom dress because it's not appropriate to the meeting. I just don't think, is this appropriate for me to wear as a male assigned at birth or whatever
Yeah.
my identity is as non-binary. I will, though, wear the cutest little black pencil skirt, bodysuit, and jacket you've ever seen and carry my computer bag, which is incredibly professional. Whether a person finds it inconvenient that my identity aligns or doesn't align with their worldview, that's where I stop asking for permission. I'm like, listen, I'm sorry
Mm,
if this is inconvenient for you, but it's a you problem, not a me problem.
mm. Um, my next note that I had that I don't know, there's so many like brilliant words and phrases on your website. Like I could read
Oh,
that on a little daily. The unapologetic identity.
yeah.
Um, I think is so important. And I grew up in a really small town where people knew I was gay before I knew I was gay. And so it was constantly like drilled into my head that that was awful and you shouldn't be that. So I grew up like, whatever this is not a good thing. And it took me a long time to embrace my identity. And I think like generations coming up now are getting so open and
Mhm.
honest, which I love. And so I want you to talk about unapologetic identity and what that term came from
Yeah,
for you.
so I've struggled like you. I knew that there was something different about me since I was a little kid, but I genuinely did not acknowledge it or accept it until I was 41 years old. And
Wow.
I think that so much of that is rooted in, fear, guilt, shame, doubt, judgment, compartmentalization, and all those things. But ultimately, I think everyone has a coming out story, right? Where the fear becomes courage, the doubt becomes certainty, and the shame becomes pride. And they say, listen, this is me, this is who I am. And I think that that's a pivotal moment where you realize that if it's a part of you, you get to love it unconditionally. Now,
Mm,
here's the cool caveat and how important language is. I don't like everything about myself, Richard. I do not believe myself to be perfect or in all ways without error or failure or things that I want to improve about myself. But even the things that I don't like very much, that I'm putting forth effort to adapt or evolve or change, I still love them because they're a part of me and I get to love myself unconditionally. And so that dovetailed into this idea, well, if I love everything about myself and I continue to work on the things that maybe I just don't appreciate that much, that means I get to live unapologetically. I get to say, I'm not sorry for who I am. I'm not sorry for the journey that I'm on. I'm not sorry for the impact I have on you as an individual in this world taking up space. It dovetailed into that because that's one of the other things that I hear and I witness when I coach people. I do a lot of listening and they do a lot of talking. I do a lot of question asking. They do a lot more talking. And what I find is people take up as small amount of space as possible, oftentimes to not have impact on someone else.
mm,
And over time, what happens is they realize that the impact they have is not always up to them. Sometimes it's something that is inferred by the person they're talking to or the place. And so I tell people, listen, here's the deal. As long as you're being authentic to yourself, you get to show up, shine bright, be loud, be clear, and take up massive space. And if somebody has issue with that, then they should move away, not have you play smaller, because there's no reason to apologize for who you are.
Yeah. How do you have like, I don't know, I don't want to say like tips, but for people who are struggling to like take up a little more space and don't know how to do that, like what are some easy ways that people could think about living a little bit differently or taking up more space? I love that. I love that phrase of
Mm-hmm.
in every day, just to like ease into that.
Yeah. So I got some stuff for you. So number one, I love the language. The first thing that I tell people is living as they're living is a choice. Absence of a
Mm,
choice is still a choice. And so I take full responsibility and accountability for the fact that I lived a manufactured, fragmented, sort of quote unquote fake version of myself for 41 years. Now, it may not have been a very open choice. I didn't have all the freedoms in the world, but I did choose to do that. So that's number one. The minute we decide to not do that anymore, that's the first step. Now, I tell people there's four kind of journey steps you go on, right? So the first thing I tell people to do is start acknowledging and noticing things. If you just look at it and see it and don't take any action and don't make any judgment, keep it neutral and just be like, okay, so this thing. That's the first step, and it's incredibly hard but not complicated.
mm,
Okay?
that's
There's
important.
not it's not incredibly intricate. You just have to do it. So, first thing you do is acknowledge it. Then you grow to accept it. That's that moment when I tell you, you may not like it or it may feel foreign to you, but you get to learn how to love it. So, you accept it, you acknowledge it, you accept it, then you embrace it. Which means I literally want you to give that thing a hug. It's been sad and lonely and longing for acceptance for so long. Embrace it, give it a hug. And then lastly, there's this really special moment, and I'll bet you, Richard, you probably distill it down in your life when you realize, hey, this thing about me, not only have I seen it and accepted it and started to love it or embrace it, now I'm going to take ownership of it. And the thing that I thought was my kryptonite is actually my superpower. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to use this to change the world. It's really
Yeah.
a beautiful process.
Yeah, once you accept that and embrace it and run with it, it's it's liberating for you and kind of for the world because you get to really do what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I find that you become a beacon of light and hope for others too.
Yeah.
So like every time someone has that coming out moment, which incidentally, you're right. I think the new generation of humans on this planet, hopefully in not too long, we won't be having coming out stories anymore because people are taught, like my daughter is taught at a young age, be whoever you want to be. Don't let the world put you in a box. Don't Those children are now coming and being like, listen, this is me. And they're doing it at a much younger age without all the stigma and all the, so I hope and wish for a day when we don't all come out, but everybody that does in our current state becomes a beacon of light and hope for someone else that sees themselves in that story and is like, well, and that's a lot of what motivates me. Well, if they did this and they're okay, maybe I can do this and I'll be okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you're writing a book.
Yeah.
So I hope that you come back when that comes out. Can you talk like a little bit about that, what it's going to be about and where you are in the process of it?
Yeah, I'm 40,000 words in, which has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. Not because, I mean, I really do love to write, and I've been a writer for a long period of time. So I tell people that I like to educate and inspire with the spoken and written word. And the written word for me was always short form. I'd write articles, I would write scripts for videos, I would do different things. But this was the time I told my wife, I've been saying that I'm going to write a book forever, and I haven't done it yet. And so I invested money in a coach and a publisher. And now I know I got to do it because I've got people waiting on me. So I'm 40,000 words in, which is about 2/3 of the way. And it really is an outpouring of my story and my journey, very memoir based, but in a construct that hopefully serves as my coach really loved this. And so I'm going to say it in deference to her. So Demi, if you hear this interview, it's for you. It is a masterclass in vulnerability because what I learned was we're all so worried about being vulnerable because it shows us as weak. One of the things I've realized is there is no strength like the strength to be vulnerable. So I think that's the lens in which people get to see this book.
I'm so excited for it to come out, and I hope you come back when it does.
I will.
How can people connect with you and follow you and see where you're speaking and engage with you?
Yeah, I really want to be ubiquitous. I don't know that I've achieved that yet, but I am all over the internet in the same place, and that's by my first and last name. So I'm Don Mamone, and I have donmamone.com. I'm on Instagram as Don Mamone, on TikTok as Don Mamone. And so I like to share with people that because I'm not the next greatest thing yet, I answer all my DMs, and I got a lot of people that reach out to me with really personal questions that they may not have asked or tell me something that they've never told. And I take that with a great deal of care. And so if you're out there and you want to be seen and heard, I want to see you and I want to hear from you. So just reach out.
Well, I think you're the greatest thing here.
Well, thank you.
So you've got one person, one person here today in this room. You're the best thing that ever happened.
Well, thank you, Richard.
And I appreciate you being here so much. We'll put all of the links in the notes and in the comments. Don, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Richard, for having me. It was a pleasure.
We will be right back after this, everyone. Set your notifications because you won't want to miss an episode of Make Your Day Richer. Host of the Quotivation podcast, Jody Powell, is here. Sexual assault recovery coach Marie McKenzie joins us. Author of A Cup of Tea on the Commode, Mark Stephen Purrow sits down with Rich. Don Mamone teaches us about the benefits of never asking for permission. And Bob Weischer is here to talk about pre-birth trauma. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to watch. Make Your Day Richer, weekdays at 10 a.m. Hi, we're back. I need to have a video of what happens during those little videos, those little commercials, because I'm running around here like a crazy person trying to change things and move things and hoping that it looks good when you come back. We have a big thing to celebrate today. And if I had a clapping track, which I'm going to get for tomorrow for our next milestone, I would do it. But we hit 1,000 views on the show. So thank you, everybody, so much who have been supporting the show since the beginning last week, and we really love it. It's available on all the platforms, podcast, video, audio, all the things. So make sure you're looking for Make Your Day Richer TV and follow and subscribe us. We also, I don't think I'm going to cry, but I might cry. My goal since I was a kid, since I was 10, was to be a talk show host, and not just to be a talk show host, but to get paid to be a talk show host. And we have this show every day of the week, and we invite some amazing people on here all the time. And I appreciate everyone who has come on here. And I recently, someone told me, you should ask if people will pay you to come on your show. And I was like, well, how, why? They're like, because you're doing a great service and you're providing something amazing. So you should ask. And so all the guests fill out forms when they come on here. So I know what they want to talk about and how they should be followed and all of those things. And so I just threw a little thing on there recently of, if you want to support the show, you're supporting an entrepreneur, a small business, and a dream of mine. And since I have done that, the guests that have been booking have been paying to come on the show. And it just is mind-blowing to me that people will do that and support it. And so for everybody who has given money to the show, who have become coffee sponsors, who have signed on to be on the show to be a guest and have given money so this can continue, thank you. It's literally a dream come true, and I can't express enough my thanks. And you'll see the people, because I have added them as producers in the credits of this show, because I think they are literally making this show possible. And so thank you all. And I'm going to shut up now before I cry a little bit more. Tomorrow we have Bob Weischer here, who's going to be talking about pre-birth trauma. It's going to be a great show, and I can't wait for you to meet him. Like I said, if you don't want to be on the show, but you want to support, you can always buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/makeyourdayricher. And as you all know, the goal is, and maybe I'll charge her. I'll maybe charge her a little bit more than everybody else. One day, Rosie O'Donnell will be on this show, and that will be my final show. I'll never host another episode of a show if she comes on here. And so every day we're going to talk about her, and every day I'm going to show something that I have of hers, because I have my own Rosie Museum in this studio. And so today we're talking, I'm just going to grab this. She had, in, what was this, 1998, they had a little Christmas ornament that you would buy from Kmart. Remember when she did Kmart commercials? And money, $3.25 would go to charity. The ornaments were $6.99 at Kmart, and I think I bought 20 of them. And I have a ton of them on my tree every year, and they're the cutest little things. And one day she'll sign this maybe. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. I love you all so much. Go out there and do good things and be nice to people. And I will see you again tomorrow. I love you. Goodbye, everyone.